Good morning, everyone. First of all, apologies for the late start today. My name is Councillor Dr. Shabina Qayyum. I am a councillor for Peterborough and the Labour Group Chief Whip there. And I will be opening this session that has been conducted on behalf of Pakistanis for Labour and SME Labour as well. I'd like to thank Shahid Nadeem, who has convened this. And I know that all of us are quite sleep deprived and we've had a busy few days. So thank you very much for making the effort to come here. We had two events. The first one was bringing BAME communities together. And also the latter topic was winning the marginals for Labour. So we think that it would be an efficient use of our time to bring both of them together. I will be chairing the event and I'd like for our panel to make their introductions. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to our wonderful MP for Bolton, Yasmin, Qureshi, who actually needs no introduction, but I want her to say hello.
Well, good morning, and I have to congratulate all of you for getting up and coming to this meeting so early in the morning on the final day of the conference. But it just shows the enthusiasm out there to win for Labour, and with that kind of enthusiasm and dedication, I am sure the next general election, with all our hard work, will be for us. Now, as Susan said, I'm the Member of Parliament for Bolton South East, and I'm also the Shadow Minister for Women's and Equalities. And I have a constituency which I suppose in Labour terms is normally regarded as safe Labour seat. But I have to say, I have never regarded it as a safe Labour seat. I've always regarded it as a marginal, because you never know when the electorate can shift. And if you look at Selby and see what happened there, 20,000 majority of the Tories gone. So I think recognising, I would say all our seats are marginal. And therefore, what's I think really important is actually what we call good old groundwork on the street. So, things like canvassing, leaving leaflets, talking to people. And as members of Parliament, I'm sure my other colleagues do the same, I certainly pay a lot of attention to my constituents when they write to me, whether it's on a policy issue or whether it's individual problems that they have. And when I write back to them, say, for example, on a policy issue of some sort, it could be bee pollination, which some people might laugh, but actually, it's actually a really, really important issue, because those who know about environment and know that the food production chain requires pollination by the bees. And if you don't get enough pollination, you will not be able to produce enough crops. Or pesticide, for example. I mean, these are kind of what people call sort of quiet areas, but actually just as important, because pesticide leads to quite a lot of people, crops being ruined and people becoming unwell as well. And it's a big issue for so many people. But then on top of that, you get really international issues like what's happening in the Middle East or in Africa or Asia or whatever. And instead of just doing a usual response, thank you, I agree with you, I always look into it and respond properly and write to the ministers, to say this issue has been raised. Now, the reason I do it for two reasons. One is because I genuinely want to assist my constituents, and I think what they have to say needs to be got to the people that are listening and can make the decision, which in this case is the government, but also my own party's hierarchy as well, the shadow ministers as well. And you get two things out of that. One, the satisfaction that you've told people, but secondly, if you want to look at it from purely cynical point of view, you deal with a constituents properly, you virtually almost guaranteed their vote. Not saying everyone, but majority will, because we know that there are still a lot of people who vote on the basis who thought their candidate is or who the MP is, not necessarily on the party. And I think one of the things in marginals, because we're going to mix our BME communities and marginals together. So a lot of marginals actually that working with people, listening to their concerns, can make the difference between winning. Now, you're right, as an MP, I have an advantage because I have access to, I'm able to try to do things. But even as a parliamentary candidate, you can do lots, and as Labour Party members. So, for example, as you know, there are sort of coffee morning, mums and toddlers club, there are older people's pensions meeting for lunch, there are community events happening in each sort of area in different wards. There are, festivals taking place, whether it's a scarecrow festival or whatever. And you need to be there. The councillors, the candidates, council candidates, and Labour Party members there talking to people to show that you are interested. And that is, in some respect, how you can win back, a few hundreds or few thousand votes. Because let's face it, we've got a lot of marginal seats where the difference is only about 1,000 votes. Some is 100 votes, some 200 votes, 400, 500 votes. Those kind of marginals can often be won by candidates and the local party being really effectively reaching out to people. And I don't mean just throwing literature through their doors, right, because most of that ends up in bins for most people. But it's actually talking to people, doing community events. It's running even sort of street surgeries. So when I was a candidate in Bolton South East, one of the things I did with some of my active Labour Party members, I would write a letter saying, I'm coming to your street or your area on such and such a day, and if you want to talk to me, I'm meeting here, or put the leaflet in your window and I'll come and speak to you. And we would distribute that to maybe 200-300 households. And then, we'd go around and talking, that kind of thing. And I wasn't an MP there, I was just a candidate. But it meant that people saw you. It meant that you were there. And I went with Labour Party members to help me along, because obviously you shouldn't be going on your own. That looks really sad. And, you're reaching out to people that way. They meet you, they talk to you, and they understand that you're a candidate. So grassroots campaign, nothing beats that. And obviously, as I say, knowing your canvas returns, knowing people who are going to vote for you, because at the end of the day, let's face it, if you want to be really hard-nosed about it, winning election is about maximising your voters. It's maximising your support to get them out on the day. So canvassing returns are very important, because on the day, as you know, they're the people you want to make sure turned out to vote. So that's the kind of what I would say. And I'm sure I've said everything that you all know, and there's nothing surprising in any of what I've said. But I think sometimes perhaps it's just worth reiterating that even if you haven't got an MP, say a Labour MP in your constituency, even a good parliamentary candidate and good council candidates and councillors can do a lot to help the party to succeed in a general election. Now, I always say to my colleagues, MPs and candidates, that listen, one thing you also need to do is look after your Labour Party members as well. Please don't take them for granted. And I know some of my colleagues or people I've come across the Labour Party sometimes, almost expect Labour Party members just to turn up and vote for them, and some of them get a bit sort of, unhappy when that doesn't happen. But I always say, Labour Party members, you are paying yourselves, you're doing it voluntarily, and as far as I'm concerned, if you turned up at one canvassing session, I am truly grateful for the fact that you are coming. And I think maybe sometimes, what some candidates and colleagues is about how to respect your members and get the most out of them as well. Now, obviously, inevitably, most of the time people will vote on the party and the policy that it issues. And therefore, in that context, of course, certain communities, certain groups have certain interests. And I think those need to be addressed by the political parties properly. So they give a coherent and a cohesive message to people. Now, I have in my constituency, I've got Hindu, Indian Gujarati community, I've got Muslim, Indian Gujarati community, I've got people from Azad Kashmir, and I've got people from who would call themselves Pakistani Punjabis. I don't really have many Sikh people in my constituency, I don't really have very few Afro-Caribbean people. I do have a Somalian population, some Somalian and some Middle Eastern people like Iraq and Iran and other places. Now, some of them are now able to vote, and I think it's really important that we reach out to those communities because a lot of them don't get involved in the political process. They're not even aware sometimes of what's happening. And therefore, I think you need, when I was saying about reaching out to everyone, you need to reach out to that community. One way you do is you go to the local restaurants, the pizza places, because certainly in Bolton, most of the small takeaways are run by BAME communities, and you need to go out there. And of course, quite a lot of the people have religious connections, so I think it's really good to reach out to all the faith communities, whether it's your synagogue, whether it's your mosque, or church, the temple, gurdwara, or whatever religious places of worship that you have in your area. You should be reaching out to them as Labour Party members or others, going, talking to them, finding out what their concerns are, what their worries are. Because even if you might not be able to do what they want, the fact that you turn up, the fact that you show interest, the fact that you show them that they matter to you is a big deal for them. It gets A, recognition, but B, they will feel, hang on, somebody cares about us, they are bothered about our concerns, and they're reaching out. And so I would say that engaging, with faith communities, you don't have to get involved in, in the intricate difficulties, but I think just letting them know that you are concerned about their concerns, letting them know you care can make a lot of difference. And of course, depending on what position you're on, if you are able to get communities together, as you know, a lot of areas now have interfaith forums. I think they are very, very good things, and I think they should be more participation in them because they do bring communities together. Obviously, different communities have different interests, but you know what? I've noticed one thing. It doesn't matter what faith or what ethnicity you have. The thing, though, that everybody is really interested in, bottom line, is good schools, good health, cost of living crisis is hitting everyone, job insecurity, lack of decent homes, housing policies, things like that. These are the fundamentals for everyone. And it doesn't matter what race, faith, ethnicity, gender, or anything that they are. And I think this is where the Labour Party, therefore, nationally has to offer, something for everybody, something for them. And I have to say, Keir yesterday in his speech touched on quite a lot of things, like housing and others that people are interested in. And so for me, sort of winning marginals and getting BME communities together, you could say they're more very similar because a lot of BME communities are some of them marginalised. And I think it's really reaching out to everyone, essentially, telling them they're important, they're concerned, that are concerned, listening to them. And as I say, you may not be able to solve people's problems, but the fact that you took time to listen, the fact that you engage with them is actually worth a lot, and it can make the difference between whether A, they turn out to vote, and B, whether they vote for you. So I'm sure we'll discuss more things, but I just thought I'd just kind of do sort of like an opening. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you. Just before we move on to our next speaker, I'd just like to ask, how many here are elected councillors? Put your hands up. No. Okay, great. And how many are CLP delegates? All right. Right. I'm going to ask geographically. Who's from the south of the country? So London South. Great. London and Greater London? Heartlands? and North. Okay, great. Well, it's great to see that we've got a good mix over here, and I'm sure that there'll be some interesting contributions from all of you. I'm going to move on now to Councillor Tauseef Anwar, who comes from Lewisham, if you'd like to give a little bit of your views and thoughts.
Thank you, Shabina. As Yasmin just mentioned, that we cannot take for granted, although polls are showing very positive for Labour at the moment. But we have seen just in this year, in local election, about 1/3 of the poll result wasn't as they were suggesting in those websites. So it's not something we should just say, oh, well, we are winning with heavy majority and that's it, we should be complacent about it. We still need to work hard. We still need to reach out all voters, whether they are working class, whether they supported Brexit or not, whether they are professionals, so whoever it is, we need to do our job. Since the topic of this event more focused on BME communities, bringing them together to play their role, I would say historically, BME communities have always been part of Labour. They always thought Labour is their home. So that's the way they belong to. We should not underestimate the value of BME communities. In many seats, they can change the result. Unfortunately, recent years, there is some change in BME communities. Some of them, they think they don't belong. They don't belong to Labour Party even if they vote, or they don't even belong to this country. That's another thing. We're outsider. So there's a lot of shift, I would say. It wasn't before. There's so many reasons. That's not a topic to talk about. But some of them, they are now shifting to conservative now also. In BME community, it's a big slip which we are having now, which is, I would like to give examples in London. In last year, in local election, we lost 2 boroughs, and the role of the BME communities were vital there. In Harrow, so you might know, Gujarati community, they sent Priti Patel there. She's Gujarati, and she mobilized that community, a Gujarati community. The Gujarati community was good in numbers, although not heavy in whole borough, but when you mobilize these one communities, they always come out and vote. So we lost the Harrow. And then same in Tower Hamlet, they mobilized the Bangladeshi community, and we lost Tower Hamlet also. So this is something I think we as a Labour, if we need to win the election, if we need to win the Red Wall, if we need to win the Scotland, we need to work on it. This is something we need to think that where we are missing. So we need to sit and reflect upon it. I would slightly not disagree, but Yasmin is a more senior politician. So I think that BME community usually don't go and vote. I would say if you mobilize them, they are the people who will take a day off to vote. That's the sort of people they are. In Tower Hamlet, Bangladeshis are not in majority in whole borough. They took the whole council. They supported. He just mobilized his community, because everyone for that community made sure they vote. So this is, if you mobilize them, they become a more proactive than others. I'm sure Cllr's speech yesterday was very positive, and he said, I'm going to bring all those communities back who think they don't belong to this country or this party. So this is very encouraging, and I'm sure we are looking forward to a victory of general election. Lastly, as they made these both even together, and it says about a normal neighborhood communities also, apart from BME, that also play a very vital role. My ward, my colleague Jane Rockburn here from Lewisham, he witnessed, Green Party has focused 2 wards in my borough. One was my ward and one was another lady where they think this is the ward they can win. But I have done so much work with the climate communities, and these wards are a heavy population, mostly affluent ward, and they care about green issues and stuff. But when they went on doorstep, and the people, like there's a local group called Climate Action Group, so I helped them to form their group. Throughout I was with them, and they said, well, it's okay, but I think they are doing a lot of green work also. So green didn't win. So that is the sort of things we need to do with leaflets are important, door knocking are important, all advertising, digital media is important, but these things are equally important. We engage with local groups, whether there is a pensioner group, whether there is a park friends group, whether there is a climate groups. So these groups also will support. So I just stop here and let other speaker, and I will open for discussion. Thank you.
Can I just...
Thank you very much, Tauseef. I think Yasmin, you wanted to come in there, didn't you?
Sorry, actually, I don't. You're right to point out about the BME community voting. What I was actually trying to say, now perhaps I didn't make it very clear, is but the BME statutory community, the ones who've been here for a while, they are very politically engaged, especially from the subcontinent, very, very engaged. And in my constituency, the ward which have the highest BME community, there's two of them. Even at a council election, we get that 3,000 majority. What I was talking about is the new community, the new BME community that have come in. They are the ones we need to seek out engagement. But you're right.
Clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just wanted to clarify that. Oh, sorry, I've got to see. Yeah.
You've got your own microphone, Yasmin.
I know, I
That's
keep
special.
forgetting.
Right, I'm going to ask Shahid, Nadeem to make a contribution, and then we'll move on to, I think, contributions from the audience as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Shabina, and thank you all of you being here today as we devolve into the important topic that holds the key to electoral success for the Labour Party. And as I was discussing with some of you today, yesterday, and day before yesterday, about I know you have a very good important contribution which I would like to, which we all would like to hear and share with each other, so we can make sure that. That we pave the path for the Labour victory. And in order to secure the victory in closely contested seats, it is imperative that we draw inspiration and insight from the grassroots activism taking place within our community. Marginal seats play a crucial role in determining the outcome of elections. Winning these marginal is essential for Labour Party to secure majority in the parliament. We all know that Tory could come up with any shenanigans or some different type of the things which could, which may change the polls and the popularity. That's why it's also important to focus on the marginal seats and also involve other grassroots communities, including BAME communities. To achieve this, we must recognize the unique dynamics and challenges these constituencies face. Local community activism can provide valuable insight into the concern, inspiration, and the issue that resonate with the voters in these marginals. Community activism is the driving force behind change at the grassroots level. It is a powerful tool to mobilize, support, raising awareness, and shaping the political landscape. Local activists possess an intimate understanding of their communities and have their fingers on the pulse of the local issues. By harnessing the power of the community activism, we can build connections, engage voters, and win their trust and support. Furthermore, community activism foster a sense of ownership and empowerment as individuals play as an active role in shaping their own communities. And local community activism also teaches a valuable lesson that we can apply in our electoral strategy. It emphasizes the importance of listening and engaging with the voters. By actively listening to the concern and inspiration of the community, we can develop policies and messages that resonate with their local needs. And community activism also, we find out the significance of the building relationships and networks by forcing alliance with the local community groups, whether they are faith groups, whether they are any community issues, which could influence and can amplify the message that builds trust with the community. And the community activism also demonstrates the power of the grassroots organizing and mobilizing the volunteer. And by creating a strong ground campaigns and utilizing the enthusiasm and dedication for the volunteers, we can effectively reach voters, build energy, and secure support in the marginal seats. And it's also ensure that we have a presence on the ground, engaging with the voter and addressing their concern, and we can prioritize targeted messaging that speaks directly to their specific needs as for those each marginal seat in their individualism, because some certain issues could be different in London and they could be different in the Midlands and North and even on the Scotland as well. So we must build a strong coalition and collaborate with other progressive groups and organizations by uniting our efforts, so we can create a powerful force capable of affecting changes and winning marginal seats for Labour. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank our panel members as well. So we were talking about community activism, speaking about mobilising community groups, and also collaboration. So these are the 3 C's. I'm going to sum it up. Now, I hail from Peterborough, which is probably one of the smallest marginals in the country at 2.5%, characteristically flitted between the Conservatives and the Labour Party over the last couple of years. We had that historic by-election in 2019, and I can't tell you how painful it was when only 6 months later we lost it to the Tory MP Paul Bristow, who has hung around, and we are determined to win that back for our next PPC, who is Andrew Pates. And recently we've had some key by-elections, and I just want to get a feel in the room. How painful was it to have lost in Uxbridge and Ruislip? I mean, put your hands up if you felt that. Literally, it was painful. And I can see a councillor who sat here who worked incredibly hard in that campaign, and I'd love, Cllr, for you to share some of your experiences in that. So when we talk about community activism, it's about bringing BAME communities and all communities together, because we've got to remember that ethnic minority groups don't just encompass Asian groups. We've got Black and Afro-Caribbean groups as well. We've got the smaller minority communities, like the traveller community, for example, and other ethnic minority European groups too, who also need mobilising.